Hello, everyone. Welcome to the keynote session at the Indegene Digital Summit. My name is Sameer Lal, and I head the Enterprise Medical Business Unit at Indegene, which comprises of medical affairs, regulatory, safety, as well as market access. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Robert Brown, Senior Vice President at Pfizer, who leads digital solutions across R&D, medical, safety, and regulatory. Robert has graciously agreed to share his experiences, best practices, learning as he led digital transformation across Pfizer for the last couple of years. Robert has had an illustrious 30-year career. Apart from Pfizer, he has also spent time at Eli Lilly, Cigna, apart from other companies. And Pfizer reports into this chief digital officer at Pfizer. The way we'll use the 30 odd minutes we have with Robert is we'll allow him to start first and share his perspectives, insights. And after that, I might double click on some key thoughts and ideas that he talks about in his opening remarks. And after that, we'll open it up for Q&A. And we encourage you to put questions on the chat window that you see on the interface. Robert, thank you so much for your time today. I'm very excited for your session, and I'm sure the audience is looking forward to hearing from you all the exciting things that are happening at Pfizer. Over to you, Robert.
Oh, thank you, Samir, and thank you all the colleagues at Indegene that are on this call. I'm really excited about being here, and let me first thank you all for the work that you do at Pfizer to make us successful out in the marketplace. I think you guys know as well as we do that we've been in the news for a few years now due to the pandemic and the work we had to do on our vaccines. So I'm excited here to talk to you about how we contributed to not only that, but the digital transformation is actually happening inside of Pfizer since 2019. So I'll share with you kind of our experience that we've had under the leadership of our Chief Digital Officer, Lydia Fonseca, who joined us in 2019, along with our new CEO, Albert Bourla, who's been in place since that time also. Albert, when he started his reign, made it very clear that digital was the secret sauce for the success of Pfizer going forward, and that we had to take advantage of a transformation in order to do things better, in order to bring drugs to market quicker, in order to create breakthroughs that change patients' lives. And being that digital was going to be front and center in that, he brought in Lydia Fonseca to the organization, and we did several things. One of them, first of all, declaring exactly what we were here to do. And that was to build a digital strategy for our business. What we were deciding to do was to create a business strategy for a digital world. That was our objective, not just to come in and transform digital, but to create a business strategy to evolve into this digital world that we all are fully engaged and involved in. We know for a fact that our competitive strength lies in our ability to drive digital innovation across the entire value chain, quickly and at scale. And as you guys know, from manufacturing and supply all the way through to R&D and next generation commercial, we have to work across all of those divisions, innovating, transforming our digital platforms in order to make sure that we are allowed to get products to patients, as well as to run effective clinical trials. We have been tasked with basically a 3x3 on our clinical trials, meaning that we're trying to reduce the cycle time of clinical trials by 3 years in the next 3 years. As you guys know, from our perspective, it is absolutely imperative to get products to market as quickly as you possibly can. One, because it's very expensive to bring a drug to market. Two, patients are waiting and we are impacting their lives. And three, it is absolutely critical for our business in order for us to be successful in the marketplace. What we had to do from a digital perspective was to really balance out our portfolio and introduce a new operating model that focused on customers and company priorities. When I talked about the portfolio, up until 2019, we had a vast portfolio in digital, but we didn't know exactly where we were spending it, how much we were spending, where were we spending it, and why was it important to spend it in those locations. And you would think for a company our size, we would know that. And it was more because we lived in a world of verticals where R&D did their thing, commercial did their thing, manufacturing their thing. And what we realized is that in order for us to be successful going forward in the new market is we had to start working more horizontally. So the first thing we did was rebalance the portfolio and shifted to strategic initiatives that went across our domains versus just in a vertical. We really started focusing on our functional, strategic, and foundational investments to make sure, one, that foundationally we have an infrastructure that actually can support a transformation such as this. We also allowed the functional lines to contribute to this rebalance, but we also realized that the biggest bang was across our functions versus within. And so we really changed that transformation to a more strategic focus and balanced out that function from there. So that helped us now to be able to fully see into our portfolio, where are we investing, why are we investing in it, and is it the right place to spend that buck on that particular initiative. The next thing we did was focused on our operating model. Our operating model in the beginning was very focused on a specific customer and making sure we were doing what they needed to do. What we decided to do was to start introducing a horizontal thinking that client partners were at the top of the spear of engagement on a strategic level with our business lines. We also dedicated our creation centers to focus on delivery and innovation. And then we started creating new and enhanced skills with customer experience, product management, innovation labs, and data expertise that we didn't have, or if we had it, it was spread across the company doing different things. So we brought some focus to how digital was going to engage inside of Pfizer, as well as externally with our business partners, such as yourselves. Bottom line is this operating model now allows us to be nimble. It allows us to engage at the proper levels in our organization from top to bottom. And it also allows us to prioritize our investments in our portfolio to make sure that we are investing in the right places. As we invested in our foundation, there were several things that needed to happen. And luckily, we did them before the pandemic hit. The first thing we had to do was upgrade our network to improve performance and cyber resiliency. Our networks were falling down around the world. Our speeds were at a minimum, flaky. We had very poor interactions across the world. And we knew that from a cyber perspective that we had many failure points that we needed to focus on. And so we basically focused on investing in that because we, in a single day, deal with over 50 million malicious attempts at our network daily. With that knowing, we need to have a strong network that is backed up and fully protected. The next thing we did was to start moving more towards the cloud, as we all have done. We went from in 2019 from a 25% focus on the cloud to now we're almost 80% in the cloud. That has created the ability to be flexible. It has brought cost savings, but it's also made it challenging in that working in the cloud with containers and different vendors and so forth, we've complicated it a bit also. So it's not all warm and fuzzy, but we do make it happen in terms of our ability to scale as well as to descale when we need to, depending on the investment or the foundation we're focused on. So cloud has become very important to us. The next thing we did was focused on reduction in business impacting service interruptions. So we had in 2019 probably a very large number, which I can't quote at this time, in terms of the number of service interruptions that happen around the numerous systems that we have around the globe. And we really focused on basically a 50 to 60% decrease in those reductions. We all know that the best ability is availability, and our customers work 24/7. And when I talk about our customers internally, that's all of our physicians, our patients, our clinicians, our regulatory specialists. We work round the clock, submissions, adverse events reporting, product management, information to customers around the globe. These things are important, and our availability is absolutely critical to make sure that when somebody's looking for any type of information, that we have that available at all times. We also increased our data storage capacity. We're somewhere around 70 petabytes today, and that continues to grow hand on hand, year on year. If you think about the amount of information that we deal with as a pharma company in terms of the number of products that we have on the market, the number of submissions that we have to handle, It is absolutely critical that we manage our data storage, that we manage our data, that we protect the data, and that we have the data available to our customers. With that said, thus hit the pandemic. Had we not done these foundational investments, I don't believe that one, we would have gotten a vaccine to market in 9 months, nor do I believe that we would have been able to send 90,000 people home and still have them be just as productive, if not more productive, than they were in the office. So those foundations are absolutely critical to our business, and we recognize that early on in order for us to be successful. What did that lead to? Our ability to scale in an agile way of working. So if you think about the future of content and our ability to review and approve timeframes from 38 days to 6 days, that was one of the challenges that our CEO put on in front of us in the beginning in terms of our ability to manage content. We're talking about labels, we're talking about submissions, we're talking about getting things to market quicker. And one of those biggest challenges was medical literature, right? And making sure that those reviews happen. So we were able in an agile way to 84% reduce the amount of time it takes to do that. Data centers on demand was another example of reducing cycle time and computing capacity. We went from being able to procure cycle time and capacity that took weeks and months to hours and days. Once again, another critical factor to us bringing products like our vaccines to market within 9 months. And then we created these agile functioning teams, over 300 plus, to focus on light speed and the 4 or 5 bold moves that we've set inside our company to make sure that we are successful. Working in this fashion, in an agile way, has allowed our company to be at the forefront of the race, in the digital race for our pharma organization and the industry itself. And it has allowed us to be able to transform the company in ways that we never expected. That led to our ability to empower our colleagues. We really are focused on our learning academy and our ability to grow our colleagues so that they have the skills they need to work in a digital world. They need to have the business strategies be able to align with the digital technologies that are emerging. So we're focused on making sure that the skills that are built internally as well as externally are readily available to our colleagues, that the partnerships that they need to have with companies like yourself or academic institutions are available to people, and that we create the connectivity that they need in order to distance learn, to virtual learn, to hybrid learn, and to be physically in front of people. We've also created this workplace that we all are struggling with, where people can get together both virtually and physically. We're starting to see the transformation back to a physical location, but it's a slow uptick. And we have probably 3 or 4 scenarios that potentially going to happen. Some folks are going to just stay home just because it's basically they may be exposed. They may have family members that are may be exposed from a virus perspective, and it works better for them. Some people will want a hybrid where they can come in a couple days a week and still be able to work from home. And then there are others who just basically want to come back to a normal work environment where they're physically going into the office. And we're going to have to support all of those, right? We're going to have to be able to communicate digitally throughout all of those capabilities in order for us to be successful as a company. The other thing that we're focused on is enabling quick response and driving profound business impact. So we talked about modernizing our global remote access for 100,000 people, including yourselves, because our partners externally are just as important to us as our colleagues in terms of making sure that we have that connectivity, whether it's through Microsoft Office and Teams, and our transformation to that virtual world that makes us all effective. We're also focusing on our virtual customer communications. As you guys know, we're trying to connect to patients around the globe, no matter where they are. We're trying to diversify our clinical trials. We're trying to make sure that we get access to patients and get our medicines to those patients, no matter where they sit. We are also trying to make sure that our sales reps and our medical information people can get to our healthcare professionals in the most effective way. And technology and digital is playing a huge role in that in our organization. Our clinical trial site monitoring and visits are absolutely becoming virtual and critical. That allows us to bring the trial to the patient versus the patient having to travel to the site. We're trying to be more mobile and nimble in those solutions. We're trying to make sure that we have medical devices that can gather information, that can bring things together into EHRs and EMRs, to be able to have mobile devices like phones and watches to be able to collect the data we need without intruding on patients. As you guys know, it is very intrusive sometimes to run clinical trials, especially for people who don't have the means to get to locations. They don't have the technology necessary. So we're trying to change that landscape because we know the diversity in our clinical trials leads to better medications to the market. It leads to better access, and it leads to better health to our world in general. So when we think about all of what Pfizer is trying to do in this digital transformation, digital is front and center. We are truly building a digital environment for a business strategy. And we are absolutely making a difference in terms of the race in the digital world and making sure that Pfizer comes out at the top. At that point, I'll stop and we'll open it up for Q&A.
Thank you, Robert. That was so insightful. I was taking such copious notes and I'm bursting with questions. Let's see what if we can do justice to them. Let's kick that off. Your opening remark, Robert, was about digital being the secret sauce, right? When Lydia joined. And I found the piece when you said the business strategy for the digital world, right? So, which is a completely different mindset that how do you actually approach it from a digital lens and not that let's wait for the digital person to come into the meeting and then we'll get started. So can you talk to us about the change management effort which took about, right? Because it's a completely different mindset to approach.
Yeah, so one of the things we have instilled in our folks is the fact that we are a part of the business and that we, just like any other function, has to contribute to the business. So we are business leaders first. And if that mindset comes first, no matter what expertise you bring to the table, you're impacting the business. So we know that the decisions that we make absolutely have an impact to Pfizer's success in the business world. So mentality starts first with everyone recognizing they're not just technologists in the corner building servers, holding up networks, and that we're at back office anymore. I mean, that used to be the old IT mentality, right? And, trying to fight to get a seat at the table was always a challenge. Well, we flipped that model completely. One, Lydia Fonseca reports into our CEO. That is how critical digital has become for Pfizer. Two, each of Lydia's direct reports, including myself, actually sit on an executive leadership team, and we contribute at that level. And we've made sure that we've inserted people at all levels throughout the organization, one, to contribute to the strategy, two, to try to drive the strategy, especially from a digital perspective. We have upgraded our skills to focus on business strategies for the digital world, and we're investing differently across the company to make sure that we are not only a part of the business, but driving the business. Samir, I can't hear you. I've lost your volume.
Yeah, well, it's
there you go.
Rookie mistake, right? Talking on mute. No, I'm saying the key piece about how you can help drive the business, right? So you're actually in the front and center, and not just an enabling function. That's a very unique insight. Robert, if the number of questions that I'm getting is any indication of how the audience is intrigued by what you're saying, right? The metrics are immense. So let me take one of the questions, Robert. One of the questions was, what were the North Stars that you established as far as the digital transformation for some of the functional areas and how they were connecting to the overarching enterprise digital goals?
Yeah, great question. So when we started on this journey, there were 4 trends that we felt we needed to start focusing on. One was around patient centricity, right? And focusing on the patient and taking control and monitoring and personalizing the patient. And we knew that digital had a strong impact to that. We had to shift our value in terms of the volume and what preventive care needed to mean for health outcomes and how digital can contribute to that. We had to embrace the technology breakthroughs. As you guys all know, you're in this business. There's so many shiny objects out there. Machine learning, deep machine learning, AI. I mean, everything is out there. And you got to figure out what actually is mature enough to bring into the organization that actually will move the needle, and what is actually maturing and we just need to wait and let that evolve, right? We knew that there were going to be disruptors that are coming into our business, right? You can see it now with Amazon and Google and all kinds of entry into our pharmaceutical, drug development, healthcare business. And we know that we had to react to that. So these were kind of our North Stars. And then what finally, I think, drove digital right into this model was COVID. When COVID hit, we got thrown right into the forefront of Pfizer. It was like, first of all, can we send this many people home and be effective, right? And we demonstrated that. Then we said, how do we make sure we have the most collaborative solutions to allow people to actually move forward and be productive in that environment? And then three, we got thrown the challenge of we need to get a vaccine to market to save the world, and we're going to do it in 9 months. So if you think about a North Star, there's no bigger one than that. And we knew that technology was going to be actually instrumental in delivering that.
And again, kudos to you and the entire Pfizer organization, right? What you have been able to do in terms of the COVID-19 vaccine and the impact on clinical trial process itself, right, has been nothing short of remarkable. So once again, congratulations.
Thank
I
you.
want to take up another theme, Robert. You talked about your CEO challenged you that how can we get content faster? And I noted one of the metrics you talked about, the review and approval process. You were able to cut from 35 odd days to 6 days, which is nothing short of phenomenal. Because most of our clients are currently grappling the challenge of how can you make MLR review and approval enabler, right, rather than a hurdle. So we'd love to get your insights on
Yeah.
that, Robert.
Yeah, so that particular challenge, we did a Kaizen event, right? We basically said we're going to bring everyone who touches this from start to finish into a room and figure out how do we shave off the number of months it takes down to days and hours. And it really became an eye-opening experience to have everyone that touched the solution to basically map out the entire process. And throughout that, you had aha moments where people were like, well, why do you do that? Right. And it was kind of like, why haven't we done this before? Right. And really, it took about a month for everyone to come and talk about how we go inside the process, outside the process, who's touching it, where are they touching it, when are they touching it. And we really started from scratch and said, if we were designing this over again, would we do it this way? And the obvious answer was no. And so it was like, well, why don't we design it how we want it to be and how it should be to get to the number of days versus basically tweaking the model as it is to try to get there. And once we did that and we basically took the chains off of people and said, you don't actually have to do it this way. We can do it a different way. That's when it changed. And then after that month, it was absolutely incredible what the team did.
And honestly, Robert, the aha moment, right, where you're questioning just because it's always been the same way, does it need to be
Exactly.
the same, right? So very
Correct,
interesting
Samir.
because MLR is one of those holy cows, right? Nobody wants to touch because
Exactly.
obviously it impacts compliance.
And you really have to focus on real use cases, right?
Mhm.
Because, sometimes you hear people say, no matter where you are, and you guys are in digital and technology, our systems aren't good enough. Our systems suck, right? And it's like, well, put it in perspective, right? I mean, we're a 175-year-old company, right? And, if we were a young company that started 10 years ago, I wouldn't do half the stuff we do today. But you know what? The number of mergers and acquisitions and divestitures and everything we've done over the years and the amount of information and data and has brought us to this point inside of Pfizer where it was like, hey, we call it kind of like Frankenstein, right? We keep this thing rolling and so forth, but we are really trying to focus on transformation. But we basically are saying, hey, we don't have to do that anymore that way. Let's start from scratch and figure out how to do it the right way.
Yeah, and I think that's where some of the younger companies have an advantage of compared to some
Yep,
of you legacy guys, right? Because they don't have to
exactly.
worry about the baggage. Robert, I have another question from the audience, and I'm looking at the clock as well. I want to make sure we can get as many as we can. The
Sure.
question is, does Pfizer have a commercial digital function
Yes.
and on the business side that you partner with, or is digital
Yes.
transformation led from the IT partnering directly with the tiers and brands? So I think that it's more of organizational
Yes.
structure question.
Yes. So the way we are structured, we have an R&D functional line that I lead. There is a commercial, and there's a manufacturing and finance, and then there's our global business services. Those are the four areas that Pfizer is broken down into now. And we have a digital function that mirrors that and partners with those groups directly to bring digital solutions both in the vertical as well as horizontally. I work very closely with my manufacturing partners because, with pharmaceutical sciences, we're building out the first level of a product, but then manufacturing has to scale it. So we've got to make sure that what we're building can actually be built to go to millions versus thousands. So, but yes, we do have a digital function that aligns with our major functions inside of Pfizer.
Awesome. Just going back to the talk you gave, Robert, right? One of the other pieces which struck me was the whole piece around customer experience. And
Yes.
typically, when you think of customer experience, you don't actually relate it with the medical organizations, right? The R&D organization, and so on. And that's a huge piece of digital transformation, keeping the customer front and center, and then using technology to enable that. So, do you want to
Yes.
double click a bit on that?
Sure. So we've all grown up in the old IT world where IT went in the corner, they did all of their development and did a ta-da, here it is. And a customer said, well, that's not what I asked for, right? And and we're like, what? And then you go back and forth, and then you finally get to something that's usable and you deploy it. And some people are happy, some people are not. And what we realize is that, why don't we start with the customer in mind first? Why don't we ask them what they want? This is not like some novel idea. It's just like common sense, you would think, right? But and it really hit home for me is one day I went and visited one of our call centers in North Carolina. And I had been hearing about our call management system was just not customer friendly. It wasn't giving them what they need. And I'm like, well, they're just complaining. Why they're complaining? The system's up. So I went and visited with them. And I sat with one of the operators who was handling a case with one of our patients, and a healthcare professional were on the call, and they were capturing information and trying to pull up medical information about a product, and the system just froze. And the lady's like, oh my God. So she's on a live call with a healthcare professional and a patient. The system's frozen, and then it wants to reboot, and then it's going to take 20 minutes. And she's like, I don't know what to do. So imagine you've got a patient and a professional on a call. She's got a system that's trying to reboot. She can't give them the information. And that's when you start to understand, okay, now I know what customer experience needs to feel like versus what we're building. So that kind of drove how we think about what we build, and having the customer first and center, having them a part of our agile teams, giving them things quickly so that we can test whether this is what you're talking about or not. And that really has helped us to develop solutions quicker, to be accepted faster, and to go back 6 months after we deploy and find that customer satisfaction is at its highest level than it's been in the past.
Awesome. Robert, as I thought about, right, 30 minutes was never going to be enough to gain the best insights with a huge amount of experience that you brought to the table. It's been hugely insightful. I know I speak for myself, but I'm sure that remark resonates with everybody else in the audience as well. Robert, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all the insights and the best practices that you shared with us. And once again, I know on behalf of the audience, we thank you and the entire Pfizer organization for all the work that you've been doing to improve patient lives. Thank you so much, Robert.
Thank you for having me, and have a good rest of your meeting.
Take care. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.